John Hotchner, who is sitting in Falls Church, Virginia at 6:30 in the morning. And John, I think if you start your presentation, do you have the slides?
Yeah.
Okay. And John, just as a reminder to say the word slide when you want to move forward.
Yes.
Okay, the floor is yours, John.
All right, thank you. Let me begin by thanking Colin, Fraser, Yigal, Nathaniel, and the FIP board and members of its FDC Advisory Committee for the pioneering work they've done toward elevating first day cover exhibiting into the family of FIP exhibiting disciplines. Thanks also for the interesting and valuable presentations we've heard earlier today. Adding first day cover exhibiting is the most recent step in FIP's largely successful efforts to adapt to the advances in collecting style we see around the world, made necessary by the fact that both serious philatelists and less intense hobbyists are taking up the challenges offered by new ways to collect. It's said that nothing is so permanent as change, and it's true of philately that we must adapt or we will slowly but surely disappear. Before going further, let me introduce myself. I've been a FIP accredited judge for over 35 years, accredited in traditional history, revenues, and literature. But at one time or another, I've judged in just about every discipline at FIP shows. I've been a national level judge for 40 years and have tried to do exhibits in all of the exhibit categories, except youth for obvious reasons. For the last 5 years, I've been showing a 10-frame first day cover exhibit, which normally receives national large golds, and have judged many such exhibits at the national level. Finally, I've just learned that I would be a team member for the experimental first day cover class at Boston 26. Slide. My objective today is to provide an overview of the judging criteria that's been developed for use in evaluating first day cover exhibits at the international level. I'll give you an idea of how a FIP judge will see a first day cover exhibit in the frames. We'll look at how the criteria in each of the judging categories will be applied. The criteria are treatment, 20 points, and philatelic importance, 10 points, for a total of 30. Philatelic and related knowledge, 25 points, and personal study and research, 10 points, for a total of 35. Condition, 10 points, and rarity, 20 points, for a total of 30. And presentation, 5 points. Slide. Jury teams most often begin with presentation, as that's the first thing we see. For first day cover exhibits, the appreciation of the exhibitor's success will be guided by the same considerations as for any other FIP discipline. First, are the philatelic pieces arranged on the pages in a way that emphasizes the material, or is it overwhelmed by long write-ups or other distractions such as fancy decorations, too many or over large illustrations, or difficult to read typefaces? Next, is the exhibit attractive in a way that encourages viewers to stop at these frames and to enjoy and learn from the exhibit? In this area, a potential problem with first day exhibits is what we in the US call railroad tracks, putting 2 covers on every page, which is visually boring. The exhibitor needs to find ways to vary the placement of covers to make the presentation more interesting and inviting. Next, we'll take note of whether the space on the pages is being used to advantage, neither overly jammed nor with excessive white space. Finally, are there consistent indications, if needed, of the exhibitor's research, items that have been expertized, and identifications of especially significant material in the exhibit? Although only 5 points, presentation tells jurors a lot about the seriousness and the effort that the exhibitors put into the exhibit. Slide. The next criterion to be assessed will be treatment and philatelic importance. While twice as many points are given to treatment, the first assessment will be of importance. As you know, importance at the international level in practice often relates to how old the material is, how expensive it is, and how significant it is in the world of philately. For first day cover exhibiting, all those considerations matter, but it is really the significance aspect that is primary. Why? Because by its nature, first day covers are often relatively modern. For that reason, the success of the story being told in the exhibit does not depend on showing page after page of old, rare, and expensive material. There are 4 considerations that apply to assessing the significance of the exhibit subject and its material in a first day cover exhibit. First, there's the question of how significant the subject and material are in the history of first day and earliest known usages collecting. In broad strokes, here are 2 examples. An exhibit of first day of use of number 1s of the world will count for more than an exhibit of cachets related to a relatively modern set of stamps. Also, an exhibit from the early days of cachet making will in general count for more than the 1990s display of more modern cachets. Inherent in this is an appreciation of the challenge that the exhibit subject represents. In other words, how difficult was the exhibit to put together? Can it be replicated by another exhibitor? Or does it contain all or most of the most significant pieces in the collecting area? Notice I did not say the most expensive pieces. Such material may be expensive, but it isn't always, especially when the exhibit contains new finds resulting from the exhibitor's study or new information that the exhibitor has developed from census work or from integrating new material with old. Other elements of importance include the stamp itself or the group of stamps. Were they issued for a single rate or restricted for use in limited circumstances over a short period of time? Or were they produced and valid for a long period of multiple postal services? Another aspect is the cachets being shown. Do they show important advances in the development of cachet making? And do they reflect what was happening in that period with regard to things like official government cachets versus privately produced cachets, mass-produced cachets versus limited editions, printed versus hand-drawn cachets, first cachets by cachet makers, cachets that have achieved some level of fame and popularity because of their beauty, quality of execution, or the fame of the cachet maker. Finally, the importance of the exhibit itself. Is it the best exhibit it can be for the scope of the exhibit as defined by the exhibitor? Does the exhibit represent a new or creative approach that's not been attempted before? As you can see, there's a lot that is relevant to assessing importance. It isn't just a matter of age, expense, and rarity, although those elements have a place. Slide. Now let's move along to treatment. This is perhaps the most misunderstood of the evaluation criteria across all disciplines. The starting point here is this. Does the exhibitor provide a title that is an exact reflection of the exhibit content? Does the exhibitor provide on the title page a clear purpose and scope of the exhibit and a brief bibliography? Does the scope outlined provide a logical beginning and end? Sometimes exhibits will have beginnings or endings that are artificially set, cutting off parts of a story that might logically be expected, or adding aspects to the story that don't belong. That should be avoided. Other than that, it is not the jury's task to second-guess the exhibitor's choice of subject or scope. The jury's task is to assess whether the exhibit does what it promises to do, no more, no less. In other words, is the story fully told? Are there gaps in the story? Does the exhibitor wander off into areas that are not covered by the title, purpose, and scope? If so, there will be a deduction in points awarded. Other elements of treatment include such things as, is the plan of the exhibit a logical progression that allows the viewer to follow the story without confusion? And do the page titles and content descriptions walk the viewer through the exhibit? The overall plan must be easy to follow, but in addition, there must be a logical progression of the material within the chapters as well. The progression may be based on date, type of cachet production, content of the cachet design, name of the cachet maker, or some other element that makes logical sense. But each page of the exhibit must advance the storyline. Another element is, does the exhibit provide not only material that covers the breadth of the subject, but necessary depth that helps to put across a full story? Further, the exhibit should be balanced. Each section should be in proportion to its part in the story and based upon what material exists, not on what the exhibitor happens to own. With regard to first day cover exhibiting, it may be tempting for exhibitors to include material that has minor or insignificant variations to make up space, but this does not contribute to depth or balance and will not be rewarded. Treatment includes the idea that the story being told is being told with the best available material. In first day cover collecting and exhibiting, we rapidly find that there is often quite a lot of common, often seen material. It is allowable to use it in an exhibit, but if space is limited and the exhibitor can fill it with better and scarcer material, it's equally allowable to leave the common material at home. It is good in such a situation to put a comment in the title page that easily obtained covers are not included because of space limitations. Why? Some judges will be looking for a comprehensive treatment, including the common material. Better to meet that potential criticism up front. In summary, treatment is the criterion which most often trips up exhibitors. This is because the exhibitor starts out with a full basket of assumptions about his or her material and is so involved in preparing the exhibit that it's hard to see the final result as non-experts will. And judges may be knowledgeable, but we're not experts. It is often said that an exhibitor has the material for a better award, but the treatment is holding the exhibit back. Thus, it is well for first day cover exhibitors to study other first day exhibits at shows or on websites to see how successful exhibits have solved problems. It's also useful to ask for critique from mentors and to learn to stand back and self-critique to identify potential problems before someone else has to point them out. Slide. Now let's move on to philatelic and related knowledge, personal study and research. Like other exhibiting disciplines, exhibitors in the first day realm become expert in their chosen area. A detailed discussion of information sources will be discussed in the next presentation, but it will include reading everything the exhibitor can find about the stamps that are the focus, and any information available about the first day cancels, the circumstances of issuance, the cachets used to celebrate the stamps, and if appropriate, the postal delivery services the stamps were issued to pay for. Other areas of study would include specialized sales and catalogs, exchanging information with other experts, relationships with specialized dealers, and accessing available government and institutional files that may bear on their subject. Finally, the results of this study will promote an ability to demonstrate in-depth and fully accurate knowledge about the subject. The way this is done is showing knowledge by careful selection of the best material to make the important points of the story, properly identifying the materials shown in the exhibit by precise and accurate text to include such things as identifying unusual rates, the producers of government canceling devices, numbers of each cachet produced when that information is of record, and the printing methods by which the cachets were added, if that can be determined. Beyond this factual information, the idea behind personal study and research is that the exhibitor's study of the subject and the material that has been accumulated should allow him or her to make new discoveries of new covers or cachets and to reach new conclusions about the material or resolve long-standing questions or even to correct incorrect assumptions of the past. It's important and will gain more appreciation if the exhibitor can highlight those conclusions and discoveries in their exhibit by some sort of icon to indicate items and information resulting from personal study. Thus, in summary, what the jury will be looking for is thorough knowledge about the material displayed and its significance to the story, and new knowledge and discovery that the exhibitor has developed to add to the knowledge base that exists. Slide. Condition and rarity are the final criteria to deal with, and I'm going to begin with rarity because it has twice the number of points and because it has an intersection with condition. First and foremost, rarity is too often thought of in terms of retail value, but it's better for the judge to think in terms of difficulty of acquisition. Here are a couple of examples. It is usually easier to acquire a perfect unaddressed first day cover. Difficulty of acquisition increases considerably if the exhibitor has found a cover that's gone through the mail and is still in very fine condition. And it can increase even further if the address is an address abroad. Some cachet makers are famous and their covers will bring high prices at auction. Others whose work is not so well recognized, but is even scarcer, may actually be harder to find. It's up to the exhibitor to get across in their write-ups how difficult the material is, and this should be done with objective facts. That is to say, 1 of 12 produced or discovery example, rather than using generalized terms such as scarce or extremely rare. It's worth noting that any item that's presented as a rarity should be a candidate for expertising if it might be questioned as a fake or having been altered. And the fact that covers in the exhibit have been expertised as genuine should be noted where appropriate in a consistent and subtle manner. Slide. Now on to condition. Excellent condition is an objective fact that is consistently applied across all disciplines. The question the judge asks is the material in the best condition available for what it is, considering the era of the material and how it was treated in the post? No one expects a plane crash cover to be flawless, but in general, covers should be intact and undamaged. Cancellations and postal markings should be clear, legible, and complete. And stamps should be tied to the cover by the cancellation or another marking. Well, what about first day covers? Given that it is better to show covers that have gone through the mail, as was mentioned under rarity, many will be perfect or near perfect, but others will have endured the sometimes uncertain problems of mail handling, especially those being sent outside the country of origin. Judges may have to make some allowances for less than perfect covers when the cover has a scarce cachet or has some other aspect of difficulty of acquisition. slide. Let me end by making a plea for exhibitors to prepare and submit a synopsis with their exhibit application and title page. It's not an FIP requirement, and there are long-serving judges who don't like this growing practice and may not read them. But in my experience, most judges find them helpful, and it's an opportunity for the exhibitor to address what they've accomplished by addressing the judging criteria category by category. It's an opportunity to talk to the judges directly and provide context and information about the problems the exhibitor has met and overcome. The synopsis is not, let me note, a substitute for conveying essential information that should be in the exhibit itself, but rather a way of summarizing the positives for the judges. This has been a brief overview, and we could spend hours getting into the finer points. But if you have questions, and we don't get to them in the question and answer session, I'm glad to discuss further by email. My email address is jmhstamp@verizon.net. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, John. The next part we're going to move forward straight away with, which is the short presentation on informational sources about first day cover collecting and exhibiting. And if you just give us a minute to reorganize the technology. All right, I think that's the quickest transition we've had so far. If you come back tomorrow, obviously we'll manage it, have it perfect by then. So, this last part is a combination between John Hotchner and myself. I will do the speaking. John is still in Falls Church. He will be available after this, as will Igal Nathaniel, who's trying to sneak away. He'll be available for the question and answer session at the end. The idea of this informational resources is not to be deeply intellectual, not to be deeply serious, but just to kind of point you in a few directions that if you are interested in collecting or exhibiting first day covers, that will kind of steer you in some directions. So, Joseph. Obviously, the first and logical area to start is philatelic societies. If you were collecting traditional philately or postal history, you would join a specialist society or you would join a local society, and that would be a source of information. Now, for first day covers, the American Philatelic Society, or the American First Day Cover Society, and particularly their journal, First Days, is a great source of information. Fairness, full disclosure, a lot of it tends to focus towards the US, but there is still a lot of non-US related information. The American Philatelic Society and the American Association of Philatelic Exhibitors is also a source of information for first day cover collecting. Journal articles. The American Philatelist, the journal of the American Philatelic Society, recently had an issue devoted exclusively to first day covers. That's a good source. Brian Callan, one of the working group, he wrote a very interesting and useful article in Irish Philately recently. So there's a whole range of journal articles oriented towards first day covers, which are helpful sources of information. The reference to the issue is down there in the bottom corner, pages 56, 58. Obviously, whilst you need philatelic information, you also need sources of non-philatelic background information relating to your topic. Ying showed in his presentation the newspaper clippings and a lot of other, what one would call collateral material for his exhibit. So you should not overlook potential other sources for non-philatelic literature. There is a very, very helpful book, The International Bibliography of First Day Cover Literature. Again, a great source of information. Online resources, newspaper archives. Ying had original copies of the newspaper clippings. But obviously, sometimes if you can't have access to an original copy, Sources like the archives will be able to provide you copies. Auction catalogs. Over the years, there have been a number of auction catalogs devoted to earliest documented uses and first day covers. Again, that's another source for you. Exhibiting tips. Many of the exhibiting tips that are applicable to traditional philately into postal history, aerophilately, are equally applicable to first day covers. So general books on exhibiting techniques are, again, another valuable source of information. Now, that dreaded word cachets again. Again, there is information on cachet makers, specific details. Here again, just a couple of examples of books that you might look to. The American First Day Cover Society Directory of Current Cachet Makers, a great source of information. There are a number of specialist catalogs devoted to first day covers. And these are just a few examples. Years ago, Scott published one. There's one for France, and even one more recently for Bangladesh. Specialized catalogs devoted to first day covers. For the United Arab Emirates, there is a very recent publication which is exhibiting in the literature class at the show. United Arab Emirates First Day Covers, 1972 to 2025. It's one of the thickest books I've ever seen. It's about this thick, but it illustrates many of the cachets and the first day covers from the United Arab Emirates. New Zealand. Plug for your book, Tony. Tony has published and again exhibited in the literature class here his book on New Zealand first day and early use covers. Obviously, a lot of the literature focuses on one country or a small group of countries. Some countries are endowed with more literature than others. But I think it's fair to say that the volume of literature, the number of publications is increasing. There is great interest in first day covers, and now there is more and more publications that are becoming available. Again, a very, very useful book on exhibiting first day covers. A lot of discussion about exhibiting techniques, what to include, how to include material, how best to present it within an exhibit. Not everyone might agree with everything that's said. Somebody might say it's left, others might say it's right. There will be different points of view, but the greater range of points of view that you review, you will decide what you want to do. So the broader range of material that you study, the greater the range of material that you read, you're going to find good ideas. An exhibiting technique, a suggestion, which I'm not going to put on the slide, but if you're looking at first day cover exhibits and you see something that somebody has done that you really like, they've done something really well, copy it. No one person has an exclusive control of good ideas. If you see a good idea, copy it, cheat, copy it, use it. That's why it's not on the slide, but why not? Take advantage of somebody else's good ideas. Now, there's this workshop, long day, very long day. Those of you who've sat here through the whole thing have my condolences. You are brave people. The recordings will be available both through the Emirates Association website and eventually through the FIP website. We also hope that we'll have the slides from each of the presentations also separately available. So if you want to study the slides, but you don't want to sit and listen to the YouTube, you can go look at the slides and turn off the YouTube. So hopefully we'll have everything in those two formats, and by then Joseph will have completely mastered the technology. Charles O'Brien, back in February of 2022, did a first day cover exhibiting course. Charles O'Brien was again a member of the working group. I recommend his presentation, which I believe is still available on the American Philatelic Society website, stamps.org. Again, a very, very useful source of information. There's also a very long, very boring article in Flash magazine, which covers a lot of the ground that we've covered in this workshop. I can say it's long and boring because, unfortunately, I wrote it, Again, it's a useful source of an overview on first day covers. Again, I recommend that to you, the April 2025 issue. The FIP guidelines, and again, I've said this repeatedly, they are available. They're available on the Boston 2026 website, and they will be available, if they're not already, on the FIP website. There's nothing secret about the guidelines. We're trying to spread them as far and as wide as we can. They're available, and if any of you have any problems finding them, you can always reach out to me or one of the members of the working group, and we would be happy to share them with you. Now, I talked about stealing other people's ideas. Look at sample exhibits. I showed a few one-frame exhibits. Take every opportunity to go and look at other exhibits. Those of you who are in Shanghai for the 2024 show, I hope you took the opportunity to look at the exhibits. But in addition, there are exhibits online. They're available to you. You can sit and look at them in your own home at your own leisure. The AAPE and the American First Day Cover Society both have exhibits available online. Now, again, looking to the future. We've talked a lot about the past. Let's look to the future. There's a lot of information about US first day covers. There is less information for other countries, but that is changing. Tony's book, the book on the UAE, the book on Bangladesh. There are new publications coming out all the time. The other good news is there's also more material coming out all the time. As new issues are prepared, new first day covers come along. So we have a constantly increasing supply of knowledge and a supply of material. Hopefully also we will have more of these workshops. We'll probably try and segment them into shorter sections, focusing either on collecting, exhibiting, or judging. The training of the judges, the creation of a jury academy is a further part of this ongoing process. It's a process we're moving forward. We're trying to be inclusive. We're trying to take steps that everybody can work with us on. Now, one of the ideas which, and I give full credit to John Hotchner, this was not my idea, but I think it's a very good idea, is having mentors who are available to help answer questions and to address issues that exhibitors or collectors may have about first day covers. John mentioned his own email at the end of his presentation. So far, and this will be, I hope, an increasing list over time. At the moment, Brian, John, Charles, Frank, and Charles Verge have all agreed to provide mentor services to potential exhibitors and collectors of first day covers. That information will also be available on the two websites, when the sites. And as I mentioned, and I stress, I hope that that group of individuals offering their advice and mentorship will grow. The more mentors we can have, the more we can help to grow interest in first day covers. Originally, we were proposing to have a handout just summarizing these last few slides. That will be available on the FIP website. So that brings us to the end of the talk sessions.